if we don't manage to deter Russia in the next 3 to 5 years, we will all end up in garages prepping RC cars with mines as in Ukraine. Completely unsafe, but this is the reality that what people do day in, day out.
You spent 12 years in the German military, then a decade scaling operations at companies like Amazon. A few years later, you've helped build Europe's largest autonomous military vehicle production facility, raise over 40 million euros, and your robots are literally fighting on the front lines in Ukraine.
At the end of the day, this unites us all. We want to raise our families and live in peace in Europe. And this is only working if we deter any enemies from the outside.
Space is humanity's greatest laboratory. Defense is democracy's strongest shield. And today, in workshops, in laboratories, in startups, a new generation rises. Not to observe history, but to write it. Where every innovation above drives progress below. Where every breakthrough in defense preserves our freedom to create. Behind every breakthrough stands a founder with a story. Now these stories emerge to light the path for those who follow. Welcome to Rockets and Radars.
This is the complete story of ARX Robotics, from a university research project to combat-proven robots fighting on the front lines, told through the eyes of the operation mastermind who helped scale it all. So before we get into the story of the company and yourself, I would love to get into what actually ARX Robotics is. For people that might not know you yet, could you explain in one sentence what you guys are doing?
Yes, at ARX, we are trying to modernize armed forces with unmanned ground system, and also modernizing their legacy fleet to all be ready for the new digital era we're moving into.
We will get into all of the details within the next hour, so thank you for sharing that brief intro. Okay, let's start with you before we get into the very beginning of the story of the company. So you've got 12 years of German military experience, then a decade experience scaling operations at Amazon, ASOS, and Grover. But in late 2022, you made a big bet and joined ARX as the fourth co-founder. I would love to understand from your personal eyes, how's the company looking when you walked in the door? At what stage were they, and what was going on around you when you walked in the door?
Yeah, late 22, I was a little bit on my Benjamin Button career, right? Starting from big companies like Amazon and eBay, moving to already listed ASOS and fashion retail, and then moving to a scale up at Grover after Series A. So I worked my way down from an organizational size, and the missing step for me and the missing piece in my career was starting something from scratch or really, really early. So I made a decision at the end of 2022 to look for co-founder roles or COO roles, ideally at seed or pre-seed stage. So when there was the first funding, then and we had conviction from investors. So I reached out to a couple of people, met a lot of people, and on a Thursday evening, I was scheduled with Mark for dinner. Both tired, really in between meetings and traveling. And early is nothing set for ARX. ARX was like not even pre-seed, nothing. So there was just a founder with an idea with a couple of other people with ideas. And my background in armed forces allowed me to understand the idea, because I still understand military German. You have to understand that military German and German are two different languages. And my ability to understand military German is still quite good. So therefore, I was able to understand his perspective, his technical knowledge, and all of that things he was describing, I experienced during my army time as well, that we have outdated equipment and so on and so forth. So that resonated with me, and it ticked one of my boxes. For me, the next step would be something I would be deeply passionate about, right? I'm passionate about a lot of things. That could be making the world a better place by reducing electronic waste, what we did at Grover. That could be reducing plastics in the ocean, but it could also well be protecting Europe and raising our families in peace. So that resonated a lot with me. As said, company was pretty much nothing, right? So there was an idea from Mark and the other three co-founders back then, but really no structure, just wild prototyping and seeing where it gets us to. So I felt like, okay, there's a lot of value add for me at age 40. from a workload perspective, I probably cannot work 16 hours a day on a constant basis because I would just straight up die because I need more sleep now. But the other were willing to go as hard as they can, right? So whatever it takes. And the whatever it takes approach for me is one thing I am always looking for people that appreciate normal working hours. But if there's stuff to do and we need to go long hours, there's no complaining and just going, right? So whatever it takes is something that resonates also very much. So we talked, and I could feel the energy of Mark. Mark is a super energetic guy, and they had an idea. They had the will to do it, but just lacking experience on how to build an organization to do it. And this is something I'm deeply passionate about. I love to build high performance teams. This is what gets me out of bed in the morning. Having my work kids, my team, so and build a framework that allows them to grow is something I absolutely love, and that gets me out of the bed in the morning quite easily, and makes me also work long hours if needed. So that's something I'd like, and I saw that missing. What I also saw missing is a lack of experience when it comes to business decisions, and that helps if you're again 8 years older than your next co-founder. Experience obviously helped, and those were the things I could bring to the table. So I told Mark, listen, I'm really excited about the opportunity. Let me think about it. Went back home, talked to my wife, and gave her all opportunities, but also the downside to it, which obviously means, okay, there's no salary. It's just a bet, as you said. All the other options we had. And she looked at me and said, okay, I appreciate you gave me all the other options, but you already made your decision, haven't you? And I said, yeah, I did. So she said, okay, fine. We're going to make things work. You're going on unemployment money. And then you try to raise funds and give yourself a salary within 12 months. If your hobby doesn't pay back in 12 months, look for a real job. And that was the agreement I had with my wife. So what I did, I used my own expenses to get back to Munich, meet the team, see what we have from a technical point of view. Where are we? And what I found was a really high, energetic team that was driven to make a change, but they just didn't know how. So exactly what I needed, exactly what I wanted. And that started the journey between Mark, Max, and myself to execute on a mission to improve the MOB's capabilities to be ready for all the conflicts in the future.
A few months after you joined the Project A's Venture Studio program, right?
Yeah. We were somewhere in between of that when I joined, but there was early stages of Project A supporting us. Yes.
For founders and people that might not know what a venture studio versus a traditional accelerator is, can you give us a quick glimpse on the difference?
Yeah, I think a studio is a little bit of a level 2 accelerator, I would say. It's more dedicated. So you need to get in. This is the same for accelerator programs as well. But they don't have a share resources that work with you, that they assign a founder associate to you, make sure you get the pitch deck right, which is a struggle at the very beginning because you need to understand what pitch decks look like, what they need to communicate, and how to do them correctly to transport the message. The studio program allows you to use not only a founder associate, but also shared resources like hiring and talent acquisition is something they bring to the table. Also some sparring sessions when it comes to budgeting, all the stuff that you need to build an early stage company, a commercial register, help. They have contacts to legal. So they have all the tools that a classical VC has. And what we really loved about, or still love about Project A, is their operational mindset and operational team. So they're not just a VC with money. They have a strong operational background. So for early stage founders, this is exactly what we were looking for. So we had a couple of options, but Project A appeared to be the best partner for this by far.
And they ended up being also your first institutional investor when you raised your pre-seed round later that year, which we'll get into in a bit. So between that and the pre-seed round, what was happening inside the company in the very first month?
Wow, a lot. We needed to figure out what the use cases were, if any, and we found out there is not really one, right? So robotics is something that's just starting, and the last 20 years has been only be driven by tenders. So there was a problem in the armed forces. And then this problem at the armed forces was formulated in the tender. And this tender then was issued to industry, and industry used the tender to develop something over 3 to 30 years, right? And the first thesis we had was, okay, based on that, we are always behind. We are always late to the party, and the whole development cycle just like changed gear in the last 3-4 years. So our idea was to front run the whole development process by us understanding what the problem is and guessing and understanding what the solution should be. So our idea was, okay, let's front run the whole thing. Let's build something we believe is useful and then present it to the customer. Let's see how the customer sees it. So completely 180 on the current procurement process, so big bet. And this is why we started developing prototypes. That was the basic idea we had when we started. And then we built the first robot just to showcase that we can build robots. And to be fair, from a technical point of view, Mark has technical background, but Max and myself are more business people. I personally, I'm not a handyman. I struggle to install lamps and stuff like that. So I'm not great at this. I don't like it, to be honest, but I'm good at building an organization. So balancing those with our engineers that we had back then was somewhat keen. And so finding direction was a big part of what we did back then. So what do we want to do? There was a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know the customer. Everybody was laughing at us, which is quite normal. People told us in the VC world, if they don't laugh at you, your idea is not big enough. So that felt all right because people laughed at us constantly. We tried to speak to investors and figure out investors. So when you're an early stage startup, you talk to a lot of people, right? You get super excited. You meet wealthy individuals, early investors, angel investors, different people. And you need to have a good feeling for people to understand who's somebody I would love to go on that journey with. I mean, this is also something we did a lot. We talked to a lot of people without outcome, right? So there was a lot of work without outcome just to figuring out like what situation we are in from a fundraising point of view, from a investor opportunity point of view, markets, product, everything. Everything was unclear. So getting data points in the first 4 months was something we wanted to do and get to an MVP prototype we could showcase and raise funds on. So that was the two main things we did. And this is what we spent most of the time doing.
How did the prototype look like, if you remember back then?
The prototype was the Garion 2 back then, or Garion 1. Garion is the guardian angel of the German infantry. That's why we named it. Garion 2 back then was our prototype that we used to fundraise on. It's a dog-sized robot, roughly 70 kilos, can be dismounted into 2 pieces, so it can be backpacked if needed. And we did a very basic autonomy on it. I think we had a LiDAR and a stereo camera. To impress our investors, we just showed a classic LiDAR 360 pictures with data points on the board. And they got super excited, right? Because they came in, last decade has been SaaS only and fintech and all of that stuff that people show presentations. And they got so excited that they see a physical product. That was really good. So that was the first prototype we built. We demonstrated basic autonomy and said, okay, what we wanted to do is build an autonomous training set for armed forces to train on. Because what we still have in the armed forces is a very static training, right? You have a target, you hit the target, goes down and comes up at the exact same position, which is from a technical standpoint, complete nonsense. You wouldn't do that. And I wouldn't. So making training more mobile was our first use case we wanted to achieve. And also from a market entry barrier that looked more achievable than going on the defensive use cases as well. So that was the first bet. So we prepared for that and did the pitch for Project A. And I don't know how many iterations we had on the pitch deck. I would say 40 iterations of the pitch deck. The pitch deck was so painful. You show the pitch deck to somebody that has invested once or twice or 100 times. Everybody has 5 opinions, right? What to do first, maybe put problem first, when to show the product, when to show the team at the end, team at the very beginning, video, yes, no. So there are 500 opinions on pitch decks. especially for hardware, if you have a physical product. So that was super difficult to find the right balance and something we are okay with. And then also practicing it in English, right? So we opened office in UK. I worked in UK and US for some time, but Mark has not. So it was humble beginnings when it comes to speaking English, and quite afraid. And we practiced the pitch quite a lot. So yeah, it was exactly what I was hoping to do, from sweeping the production area we had in the morning to pitching to investors, getting all the devil's advocate questions all the time to get you out of your comfort zone. And that was really interesting. So that was the first, I would say, 6 months before we raised with Project A.
Once you raised, how the dynamics within the company changed, as well as the steps that you took after getting that pile of cash? In other words, how did you use that money to get to the next step within your journey?
We had a convertible, a small convertible beforehand to keep us afloat. And we are, like most founders will know it, and you have to get used to it. You're pretty much broke as soon as when you fundraise. And then you wait every day for the commercial register to be updated so that the funds can flow, and so on and so forth. So everything you expect from an early stage startup happened. So we tried to push invoices out. I tried to find lawyers that were willing to get cash only after completing the round, and so on and so forth. So we did all the cowboy stuff we needed to do to get funds. Once you have funds, you say like, oh my God, I just raised $1 million. This is so amazing. And then you build a budget and say, wow, okay, after paying all the pending invoices, that's only 800 grand. Okay, cool. And then you start making a budget and you figure out, wow, that's nothing. I'm basically broke in the next 12 months again if I really push. That's somewhat scary. And we got used to it, that we always needed to go back and risk all we have again. So what we did after that is say, okay, we appreciate that we have some mechanical experience, but not really on the tech AI autonomy level. So the first person we hired was a PhD from Madrid, our first employee, and a second software engineer and a founder associate. So we were a team of 5 and 6 full-time employees end of year. And we built an even bigger prototype, which we used to go to, where was it? Estonia was, to go to the Estonian autonomy trials. That was interesting. So that was in July. So that was the first time we got exposure to it's not really competition, but other robotics and autonomy companies. And that was really interesting. We met Milram for the first time. They had a team of like 30 engineers, right? We were 5 people. We didn't even have t-shirts back then. So we all looked like tourists. We finished our robot on Thursday, hand built a box to ship it on Friday and send it on Saturday to arrive in Estonia. And then we finished the last bits of autonomy in Estonia at late night. And the good thing was that late June, it was pretty much 23 hours of daylight. So we worked pretty much day and night to survive in an autonomy challenge. Also, our sensors were completely off. Our robot looked like a Lamborghini. So sensors super low to the ground. As soon as there was high grass, we were pretty much blind. Everybody laughed at us because it was a pretty stupid idea, but we liked the design. Anyways, we won the Visitors Award for the best robot. And we also managed some of the autonomy sessions. So that was good. A lot of lesson learned. And from there, we somehow managed to sell 3 systems to the German MOD and the company that wanted to integrate into their drones in it. So we had by accident, by surprise, I don't know how we managed revenues in the first year of small revenues, but revenues. That led to the next one, which was, okay, there is actually a little bit of proof of concept here. We can smell that there might be a need for this robot. And this, helped us for the next round, where we had more interest, more people coming to site. And that was really then where things kicked off and people understood that we have something that really is needed and wanted at the armed forces. And that helped. We also pivoted in the meantime from autonomy and training and simulation to a more modular approach, because what we found is that most of the robots we've seen are more or less single use, and you can customize them somewhat. and they are modular, but modular by order, the way you customize your car, right? You can select what version you want to have, and this is the modularity which was offered. And we said that's not working, right? Mark and Max are infantrymen, and the change of the situation is so rapid that you need a new solution to a problem every 5 minutes. So therefore, only one robot or one solution will not cut it. You need something which is modular on the fly. And this is where we changed the approach and built the ARX Robotics framework. ARX Robotics frameworks is something where we say, okay, we can use same sensors. Okay, fine. We can use things which we have on the small robot, also on the big robot. So we are size agnostic, right? So we can use our sensors and our autonomy on multiple size of robots. So that's the second one was, okay, let's build a connector that allows you to connect applications to the robot, pretty much a payload connector, quick release. So we developed that. Then we say, okay, fine. So we can connect what's on the robot with the robot, so it doesn't fall off. That's amazing. So we make things which are stationary in the past, mobile. So that helps a lot. And I'll give you an example in a second. The second one was, okay, we need to power it. So, okay, we designed a power outlet for main battery, so a little bit of battery management. And then we did the software part so that you have a full plug and play experience using your robot. Because when we talk to customer, they say, okay, listen, I have a great radar from a French company that works amazing. You know, radars are pretty much like flashlights. So you can see a lot, but everybody can see you. So what happens is usually you get fire on your position when you start the radar in a short period of time, not only losing the radar itself, but also putting the operator at risk. And having those systems mobile makes quite a difference, right? You can switch it on, collect the data, switch it off, drive off, and then whatever artillery hits or mortar strikes, your way. And okay, what else can we do? And then so drones, FPV drones, fixed-wing drones, whatever drones you have, they have a limited range, and everybody knows the range, and they fight around those ranges. Combining unmanned air with unmanned ground makes sense because you extend the range. For deeper integration, you can generate multi-start, multi-land, because there's a way bigger battery pack you can use. Relays. So we figure there's a ton of use cases where a ground system makes sense. And then if you have a wounded person, the worst thing that can happen to you is not getting shot, but getting wounded. So you not only, are worried about yourself, but also 3 other people are worried about yourself. And maybe 4 people need to carry you from A to B. So we built a medevac solution, and then a transportation basket for the follow me function, where you can, get your equipment, ammunition, whatever you have, transported from A to B. And that this opened a whole universe.
Yeah, whole ecosystem of use cases, as well as specific niche target groups. Super interesting. I'm very curious, how many customers or potential customers you talk with until you decided, okay, let's expand our modular ecosystem? Was it just one talk with one supplier or one potential customer, or have you had any number in mind that you had as a line? Okay, there is a need, we will serve that need.
No, more like a reactive approach. And we were looking at, okay, this is a robot. Let's look into processes where we can help. Because at the moment, we are still living in an old world. That means old process drive old structure, drives old procurement. And now we are front running all of this because we don't wait for the tender to develop a solution. We just have a solution. And then we come to the customer and say, ta-da, this is your robot. And then sometimes they shrug and say, okay, I have not a single process that involves a robot yet. I give an example. If you talk to a mortar component in a mech infantry battalion, they need to restock on ammunition once they have they shot all their shots and need to go back to restock. And then you talk to the platoon lead or company commander and say, okay, what happens if you don't just go back, but go directly to your second position and the robot meets you with ammunition there? We will cut down your travel time and your downtime by 60%. And then it starts clicking. Oh, this is something, this is just one process where we try to help the customer understanding what the new process, including a robot, including an automated solution, could look like. And then we are talking to customers and say, okay, actually, I have another problem. And then he talks about the problem and say, okay, I need surveillance, I need some sort of a mass solution. And then we try to assess, and this is the difficult bit. There's no tender, so we don't know market size. We don't know nothing. And we just talk to people and they tell us, I have a problem that I need to do surveillance on a large area. Can you help with that? And we talk to multiple people, so we collect data points. Okay, this might be a thing. Then we try to find a solution for that and showcase it. But this is more fast prototyping to give people an idea about it, because deep integration into software and so on, this takes a long time, right? And there's
And money.
much you can do with a small team. So we try to be quick with prototyping, giving them an idea what the solution could look like, and say, okay, if that's really something you want, we will do a deeper integration. But giving them an idea is first step.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Super insightful. We have talked about customers a lot. We mentioned them plenty of times. And I would love to deep dive into how do you think about acquiring them? It's a very broad question because there are many different types of customers in many different countries with many different processes. But can you give us a bit of a glimpse on how have you been thinking about acquiring new customers since the very beginning until now? How does your process look? Where do you start? And how do you know who to approach?
We start grassroots because we are grassroots people. That means, in a nutshell, we are ex-officers, 3 captains. So we understand how to talk to the battalions, the brigades, the division commanders. Testing with them is usually the first thing, right? Showcasing value add is something people appreciate because what unites all of Europe is the understanding that we need to do something, right? And most of them just don't know how. And this is something which makes it difficult for people with no military background to pitch to the armed forces, because as soon as you talk to a general and, they will find out within a minute if you have served or not. And then, say, okay, you have no idea how our tactical use cases are. I will not continue talking to you. So this is one of our superpowers, that we understand the pain in very much detail that we have in the armed forces, not only in Germany, in all European forces. So that's the starting point. And then we develop something together with them. And usually what we do is we use on-ramps, like smaller R&D programs, to finance or subsidize development of 1 to 10 robots. So that's the normal on-ramp, right? When you speak customer, we say the customer is more is a soldier. But the actual customer from procurement point of view is the procurement agency, right? The procurement, unfortunately, is still a tanker, right? It's going steady in one direction. That worked well for the last 20 years. But now we need to change direction. And direction changes for big ships are quite difficult because it takes a long time. Processes need to break and change and so on. So what the MODs collectively have found out is the tanker will not change direction quick enough. Let's put some speedboats in the water, give them some money, and to figure out what the new processes, the new structure could look like. And then hopefully the tanker will turn quick enough so we can then mass procure if needed. And that's pretty much the approach, right? We are talking to the speedboats in the water, using them as on-ramp to finance and showcase our proof of concept to the armed forces. Try to get boxes ticked, testing with everyone we can, and then waiting for the bigger programs to materialize to procure large quantities, right? And in the meantime, you try to raise as much capital as you can in order to get to a point where you're mass production ready by, I don't know, in the next 3 years, I would say, latest.
Within the first years, you not only approached the German MOD that you got as a customer, but also Austrian, Swiss, Estonian armed forces, and the Ukrainian armed forces. I'm very curious. Let's say that you have a German MOD as a customer, and you want to look at different ecosystems or countries that you want to see if there is any potential interest in your product. How do you tackle that? Every country has a different culture, right? Every country has a different process. How do you learn about how the system works when you're looking abroad?
Again, what unites everybody is the problem that they need to innovate. Everybody understands that something needs to change. So in general, the idea we have is still good also in other countries. The language we're using needs to be different. So my German is good. My military German is also good. My English is all right, but my military English is bad. Right. So it doesn't make sense, even though I'm an ex-serviceman, to talk to a British general because they use 500 different acronyms. I don't know. So we are trying to replicate a little bit what we've done in Germany by hiring a local team of people with military experience to understand the customer needs and programs and then adapt our system. The good thing is that we're working with components off the shelf. So we're not a developer per se, at least not on the hardware side. On the software side, yes. So that makes changes for countries quick. That means if I need a different part, that could be metal shield, this could be sensors, whatever, and there is a local supplier, I can localize the supply chain. This helps because all the MODs and all the countries, even though that we are Europe, try to keep their money in country, their tax money they're spending. So at some point, they always appreciate you having a local entity and are able to develop things based on the local needs. So there's not an awful lot of appetite to procure a German product in Hungary or the UK or Spain. They would rather procure a local product. So changing our supply chain in a way that suppliers are local and that we source, 20 to 50% locally and are able to build our robots locally, help them to overcome that gap, and also speaking to somebody who speaks the language better than we do. So this is a little bit of the approach we have. Let's see what it does in the future, but we feel quite comfortable with it because it helped us in Germany, and I think it will also hopefully work in other countries.
So far, so good, I think. Okay, let's get back into the timeline. June 2024, where you raised your seed round of 9 million euros, led by NATO Innovation Fund, with Discovery Ventures and Project A Ventures participating. This became the largest seed round ever for a European defense tech company. And what I would love to get into is, if you remember, what was the biggest difference between pitching to a NATO Innovation Fund versus other VCs like Discovery Ventures or Project A that you already had them?
Not too different, to be honest. I think in 23, 24, there was still early stages for VCs when it comes to dual use and defense, right? So you had a lot of people with the SaaS mindset coming in, asking you about recurring revenues and what the revenues next month will be, and so on, all those things. There was very little people with B2G knowledge. Understood that procurement cycles are probably 3 to 5 years, value of dev, all the uncertainty that comes with it. Usually annual budgets, so forget about all the ARR structures you have in mind. Software procurement is super difficult at armed forces. So all the things that are quite normal in B2B world are completely abnormal in B2G. So speaking to somebody that understands everything on that and was really well aware of that was really good. And this is also an advice we got really, really early in the journey, to find people who are fully on board with our mission, understanding the risk involved with B2G and the size of the mountain we want to climb. Our investor at NIF was an Air Force major from the US Air Force. So he knows what it takes. He understands service, he understands the solutions, he understands the procurement cycles. So they're super aware. The good thing by then was that we had tractions. We applied for EDF consortium. We had a couple of R&D contracts. We are pushing really hard on the marketing side. We are pushing a lot of content out on social. So we try to be really vocal about what we do, to also find the right talent and also attract the right investors. That helped us to be like crazy oversubscribed in seed. And this helped us to handpick for our board and our investors. And that's why we were super happy, also from a signaling point of view, to have NATO Innovation Fund as one of our investors. And also they have a crazy good team, right? They're a super young fund, but everybody's super high energy, willing to help. And I think like back then it felt right, and it still feels like it was a perfect fit back then, because it's also a statement. NATO Innovation Fund only invests in one business per vertical, and in unmanned ground vehicles, that's us, right? So whenever we need an intro to an MOD, if there's any door that needs to be kicked in, they are happy to do that.
Okay, awesome. Now I would love to zoom out a bit and look into the seed round and compare it to the pre-seed round. What was the biggest difference between those two rounds? What were investors looking at differently if you compare it with the pre-seed a few years back?
I mean, the pre-seed is purely based on founder team and vision, even though that vision sometimes is not even clear. And then a seed is more, okay, give me proof of concept, give me somebody who has interests, tell me this is real, give me some proof that this is real. And fortunately we had that, and this helped us. What's similar, we were as broke in seed as in pre-seed. So we that was probably the second time we were like really broke. So we pushed all the invoices out. So that was similar. And so that was a feeling we were used to somewhat. And but I think like moving from vision to real numbers, leads, what is the revenue outlook, programs. So more in-depth due diligence, of course, helped us. And also, more mature DD on finance. NATO does also very deep DD when it comes to people, security clearances, all of that stuff. So, turning the company inside out once was interesting, was a good like standard we have now when it comes to DD practices, data sharing, data security, working on the first certification. So really making a pirate ship a company was like, you can feel that, okay, this is now not a hobby anymore. This becoming a company, right? So there was a lot of to-dos post seed round when it comes to compliance and so on that you need to do. And since we have been in hyper growth ever since we started, we are always like pushing to get all the regulatory and compliancing, on eye level with the business development side of things.
By the end of this year, you have started to call yourself the Europe's largest UGV production facility, and that's a huge claim. I would love to understand the size of your operations that you were doing already back then in numbers. How many products have you been producing, let's say monthly, at that point in 2024?
Yeah. So when we secured the NATO funding, we moved to our first somewhat production site. We also need to understand that the product in Europe is not finished because the customer doesn't know what the product looks like, right? So we're still always iterating. So going into an awful highly standardized automated production process doesn't make sense. So we still need to be able to pivot and change the product if the customer wants or needs it. What we also want to do is we want to be really quick, because one main problem we have in Europe is lack of mass, right? So we have been producing TRL9 stuff for the last 30 years, which is great, high-tech stuff, 20 years in development and already outdated once it comes out. Going forward, this will not be possible. There will be still TRL9 products, battle tanks, airplanes, all of that stuff, but you will have a mass of lower tech systems supporting that or protecting that TRL9 product. So what we try to do is not go too high on the TRL level. This is also a question we are always getting from investors. How do you win the war on AI and autonomy? Answer is simple. I don't. I'm just building something which is good enough. We need to be ready to move from safety first to mission first. Mission first is something completely different. And therefore, we try to keep the system as simple as possible, robust, and also cost-effective as possible to allow the customer for a single use in mission environment. So if the robot is used in Ukraine and lost, it's not the end of the world, right? We don't want to develop a product which needs people to protect it. It should be the other way around. Our product should be there to help people. If it's lost, so be it, right? So in the context, that was the idea behind it. So what it means is less development, more integration, and then rule of thumb is one product per person per day. So that means we have, on the hardware side of things, it takes us 1 day to assemble the product, and then the second day is software, QA, and then packing. So this is the framework we are operating in, and we produced 30 robots within a month and a half at the back end of 24 when we had the first bigger order from Ukraine. And ever since, I think in total we produced, I don't know, 60, 70 robots in total, I would say.
And you mentioned pivot, and I would love to get into that, if we can call it pivot. By the end of 24, you launch Mithra OS. Tell us more about it as a product, but also what was happening inside your heads within the company to expand your product line that far as you did with Mithra OS.
Mithra was the logical next step. Mithra is something we are already doing. We just called it our software. Like our software was the ability to take the output from the sensor, digest it, and then translate it into robotic movement. Mithra was also the ability to collect the outcome of the payload, if it's a sensor, digest it, and then send it into the battle management system. Mithra was also the ability to connect in other systems. Mithra was the connecting layer that we already had in the robot. What we found is, on exercises, we had this robotic system that communicates over data. And then you have 99% of the other systems, they communicate with a poor soldier sitting in the truck with the radio waiting for orders. So there's no software capability in the legacy systems. And there are some great AI tools out there, but you cannot put the AI in the exhaust, right? You need something that allows you to run software on it. So what we've developed is a software core, which is pretty similar to what we have in our robot, extracted it with connectors, made it battery powered. So what we try to do is retrofit a legacy system to allow an old truck to be visible in a digital layer. That's the first step, right? The first thing you want to do is see all your assets, because at the end of the day, we all know that everything will move to a digital layer like a battle management system. So the first thing is visibility. In order to have visibility, you need a core that allows your computation unit that allows you to send, receive, digest, and save data. So that was the first thing we want to do. And then in addition, you want to add sensors to have some sort of sensor fusion, awareness around you, connecting layer between lateral systems, not going everything up, but also lateral. And you want to allow also legacy system to have integrations with the same payloads that we have, right? So put a radar on it, anti-drone, counter-drone system, so all those things. And this is pretty much what Mithra allows. So it's something we had in our robot since day one, but now we extracted it to help legacy systems to be ready for the new digital era, I would say.
I would love to get into the huge next milestone, naturally, which was in April 2025, where you had two massive announcements: Series A round, led by HV Capital, and then a UK expansion with £45 million commitment. I would love to actually, again, zoom out and compare Series A with seed and pre-seed. What were the biggest differences there? What were the investors looking at there?
Series A is slightly different. Proof of concept is done. Show us that you have traction, how much traction we have, how many programs, what's in the pipeline, what's forward-looking revenue. So it's a little bit more unromantic than the other two. It's more data-driven. People want to understand how much value is there, your margins. You need to have a solid budget, not just an Excel spreadsheet. So it is a proper sense check that you actually build a company which is scalable, right? And then they need conviction that the money they are giving you is just used to scale an already quite working machine. So that was cool because we understood the requirements after seed series, and we did most of our homework until Series A, even though it was only 9 months in between. And during fundraise, what we found is that especially non-European VCs, they have a very simplistic view on Europe, which is, all right, Europe is a fragmented market. It's small, it's difficult. You drive 5 hours by car, you are a different country, different legislation, a lot of bureaucracy. Building a European champion is nearly impossible, right? So that was some feedback we had in the US, which is somewhat fair, right? But that also led to new data points for us. That means us being German and being successful in Germany is somewhat an unfair advantage. Let's see what we have in the pipeline in other markets. And UK makes sense for us from a mindset point of view. They have a really unromantic view on what they need to achieve. They have a clear guidance that they need to triple lethality in the next 3 to 5 years. And therefore, they are kickstarting all their programs with the clear North Star to make everything they do more productive. And this was the reason why we launched UK. At the same time, Ukrainian customers are the ones that are the most demanding, that needed to change with the speed of the war. So building a facility in Ukraine to stay close to the customer in Ukraine makes sense to really understand what is needed on the front line, make the iterations, and shape the product in a way that helps not only the Ukrainian team to survive, but also gives us valuable insight what actually is needed and how quickly things are needed. And this is something we get still very wrong. We still believe that if we have time and this tender to prototype process is working in the future, which is not. So we need to speed up the process tremendously. And this is one thing we gathered. And then something, that helped obviously also for Series A was that we were oversubscribed once again. So we were able to find a partner who was willing to go pedal to the metal, right? This is something I tell all our investors: be ready to lose all your money because this is go big or go home. So we either be somebody or like a company that will be new prime in the next 5 years, or we go to zero. So the opportunity is now, there's a lot of things that need to be done. And that's why, if you ask me what my hobbies are, at the moment, I don't have many, right? So this is a conversation we had offline. It's just the time to get stuff done. So yeah, go ahead.
No, you actually nudged my next and then last question throughout the journey is that where are you going, guys? You just mentioned that you go all in or bust, but do you have any more concrete vision on where the company is going within the next, let's say, 3 to 10 years from now on?
To be fair, I do have a clear vision, right? So we have old primes that have struggled to innovate, that also have their hands full with the expansion of budgets. So they will struggle with their own scaling of operations. So there will be room for new primes in drones, AI, and unmanned systems. And our clear target is to be one of the European leaders on that. So how we do it is there's a couple of processes that still need to break, like the tender to prototype process need to break, and a couple of procurement process need to speed up. We still are struggling to procure lower TRL products. Everybody wants safety first, and the procurement officer just wants to be sure that the product he procured does not hurt anyone in training. But we need to go to mission first, right? The harsh reality is, as if we don't manage to deter Russia in the next 3 to 5 years, we will all end up in garages prepping RC cars with mines as in Ukraine, completely unsafe. But this is the reality that what people do day in, day out. And we will end up exactly that if we not manage to speed up the process and build a clear deterrence to Russia quite quickly. Because at the end of the day, this unites us all. We want to raise our families and live in peace in Europe. And this is only working if we deter any enemies from the outside.
Thank you for sharing that. And we are going to the very last part of the episode. I have a few questions that I prepared, and I would love to hear answers in a sentence or two if we can package like that. So if you can think of one piece of advice that would save every defense tech founder 6 months of pain, what would it be?
Get military knowledge in your team.
What is the best decision you have ever made as ARX co-founder?
Be okay with risk, being completely out of your comfort zone, being broke.
What do you think is the current status of the European defense tech ecosystem? And do you think that Europe will build a defense ecosystem to rival the American one? Or do you think we are still too far behind on anybody else on a global level?
So we are waking up. It's moving. It's moving quite quickly. So the environment is the best it has ever been. So that's good. Will we be able to catch up with the US? From size, probably not, because we are too fragmented. The programs need to be harmonized. I spoke to the European Commission 2 days ago, and this is exactly the challenge we have: to unite the market. And even all the countries have interests. We need to make sure we act as best as we can as Europeans in order to keep up with the Chinese and US development. But we are getting there. It's slowly picking up speed, but it's going in the right direction for sure.
And the very last question, how do you think about hiring. What are you looking for in the hires, and how has your philosophy changed since the very beginning of the company in 2022, 2023 until now?
Hiring, I'm pretty much hiring soft skill only. Hard skill I see in the CV, but my hiring criteria are willingness to learn and ability to learn, and being all right with the speed, the pain, everything that comes along with an early stage startup, and people that appreciate the process, not the target. The target is just one thing we want to achieve, but once we have achieved one target, it goes to the next. So people with that mindset are welcome, because we are in hypergrowth. You're dealing with an organization that's developing so rapidly that you need to keep up with it. And this ability is something I'm looking for. And this is what we have done. And this hasn't changed, to be honest. And this has been my philosophy in the last 3-4 roles, always. To look for people high energy, smart, willing to learn, being okay out of their comfort zone and ready to develop.
Okay, super interesting. Okay, great. Thank you so much. A bonus question. Is there anything you would love to share with the Defense Tech community, especially in early stages, founders that just started or people that want to get into the industry as well? Is there anything you would love to share with them?
Stay close to the customer. This is an undefined market. People don't know what they want. The customer doesn't know what the future process looks like for them. So stay close to them. Don't try to develop 100% solutions. Go in, fail fast, iterate, and go back. Fast iteration cycles will be the difference maker. And this is also the same for the entirety of Europe. The current speed of change is mission critical to the success of on the battlefield. Whoever is able to iterate fastest will be the one, being the winner on this.
Thank you for sharing your journey as well as the insight. This was super interesting. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And now you need to run. So feel free to run now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.